Hey, welcome back, guys. Let's get into the last video of today. And I'm sorry if you caught the correction. I accidentally put video 53 twice. I did go back and correct that, so one of them is 52. And so, anyway, finishing right along, or continuing, excuse me, right along, we're going to be in Matthew 9:18 through 26. It's continuing along, is what I was going to say, from the previous video that we read there from the demons. It's in order here. Mark 5:21 through 43 and Luke 8:40 through 56. Again, I'm just going to read these to you because they do give us a little bit, different information, and so that we can put together. And then I'll go back and give you some notes on it. So let's go over here and start in Matthew. You can see Matthew's version is quite a bit shorter than Mark and Luke's here. But anyway, let's get started with 9:18. While he spoke these things to them, behold, a ruler came and worshipped him, saying, My daughter has just died, but come and lay your hand on her, and she will live. So Jesus arose and followed him, and so did his disciples. Suddenly, a woman who had a flow of blood for 12 years came from behind and touched the hem of his garment. For she said to herself, If only I may touch his garment, I shall be made well. But Jesus turned around, and when he saw her, said, Be of good cheer, daughter, your faith has made you well. And the woman was made well from that hour. When Jesus came into the ruler's house, and he saw the flute players and the noisy crowd wailing, he said to them, Make room, for the girl is not dead, but sleeping. And they ridiculed him. But when the crowd was put outside, he went in and took her by the hand, and the girl arose. And the report of this went out into all the land. That is a very condensed version of this story. We're going to get quite a bit more details when we jump into Mark and Luke. So let's head on over to Mark. Okay, we're in 5:21. Now when Jesus had crossed over again by boat to the other side, remember, we were on the Gentile side, we just crossed back over into the Jewish territory here. A great multitude gathered to him, and he was by the sea. And behold, one of the rulers of the synagogue came, Jairus by name, and when he saw him, he fell at his feet, and begged him earnestly, saying, My little daughter lies at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her, that she may be healed, and she will live. So Jesus went with him, and a great multitude followed him, and thronged him. Now a certain woman had a flow of blood for 12 years, and had suffered many things from many physicians. She had spent all that she had and was no better, but rather grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came from behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, If only I may touch his clothes, I shall be made well. Immediately the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt it in her body that she was healed of the affliction. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that power had gone out of him, turned around in the crowd and said, Who touched me? Who touched my clothes? But his disciples said to him, You see the multitude thronging you, and you're saying, Who touched me? It's nice to give him a little bit of character there, because we'll talk about what thronging means. And so he looked around to see her who had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction. While he was still speaking, some came from the ruler at the synagogue's house, who said, Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further? As soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he said to the ruler of the synagogue, Do not be afraid, only believe. And he permitted no one to follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. Then he came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue and said, A tumult of those who wept and wailed loudly. When he came in, he said to them, Why make this commotion and weep? The child is not dead, but sleeping. And they ridiculed him. But when he had put them all outside, he took the father and the mother of the child, those who were with him, and entered where the child was lying. Then he took the child by the hand and said to her, Talitha cumi, which is translated, Little girl, I say to you, arise. Immediately the girl arose and walked, for she was 12 years of age, and they were overcome with great amazement. But he commanded them strictly that no one should know it, and said that something should be given her to eat. So just, again, to touch on that, on the Jewish side, to the Gentiles, go tell everybody what God has done for you. And now we're here back on the Jewish side, but he commanded them strictly, you tell no one, right, what happened. He even went as far as to get everybody out of the house. And so let's read Luke's version, and then we'll come back and talk some more. And so we're in 8:40. So it was, when Jesus returned, that the multitude welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. And behold, there came a man named Jairus, and he was a ruler of the synagogue. And he fell down at Jesus' feet and begged him to come to his house. for he had only daughter about 12 years of age, and she was dying. But as he went, the multitudes thronged him. Now a woman having a flow of blood for 12 years, who had spent her livelihood on physicians and could not be healed by any, came from behind and touched the border of his garment, and immediately her flow of blood stopped. And Jesus said, "Who touched me?" And when all denied it, Peter and those with him said, "Master, the multitudes throng and press you, and you say, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus said, "Somebody touched me, for I perceived power going out from me." Now when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling, and falling down before him, she declared to him in the presence of all the people the reason that she had touched him, and how she was healed immediately. And he said to her, "Daughter, be of good cheer. Your faith has made you well. Go in peace." While he was still speaking, someone came from the ruler of the synagogue's house, saying, "Your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher." But when Jesus heard it, he answered him, saying, "Do not be afraid. Only believe, and she will be made well." When he came into the house, he permitted no one to go in except Peter, James, and John, and the father and mother of the girl. Now all wept and mourned for her, but he said, "Do not weep. She is not dead, but sleeping." And they ridiculed him, knowing that she was dead. So he put all outside and took her by the hand and said, "Little girl, arise." Then her spirit returned, and she rose immediately. And he commanded that she be given something to eat. And her parents were astonished, but he charged them, "Tell no one what has happened." So, a few things here. See how much more detail we got from Luke and Mark's story there that we just did not get from Matthew. And if you're in my class and a part of my group, you heard me say that I actually just finished up a Christian fiction book that we didn't know until the end. I kind of picked up on it a little bit, but I thought maybe the author was just touching on some stories that were similar until you realize her flow of blood for 12 years. And then you get to the end of the story and find out that it's her. Now, of course, this is fictional, but it's still kind of neat to imagine what her life would have been like. They walk us through several common practices of that time from the physicians and what types of things may have happened and how she was treated. Even in the first account we're given, she got worse. Right? She didn't. Not only did she get better, she gave up all of her livelihood, everything. She got worse. And so, anyway, it was just really neat to have literally just had this session last Sunday, and immediately following, Sunday evening, Monday, it was that was in my book. So that was kind of neat how God does that, puts those things together. Anyway, not really relevant, but something interesting. So here we have Jesus's power over disease and death. And if I didn't say it, I put it in the notes of the last one. The last video was Jesus's power and authority over demons. Okay, and of course the one previous was his power over nature. And so now we have Jesus's power over disease and death. We have two unique stories happening here. And I'm going to show you one from a little bit different perspective. Most of us have heard of the woman from that bowed down at his feet, right? And so to touch the hem of his garment, right? We have heard of the woman who she bowed down with her hair, right? Her hair was unbound. She used her tears to, wipe his feet and stuff. And so it was, again, what she was offering. And so the uniqueness that these authors bring out for women in particular, okay? But I'm going to share with you a little different perspective of maybe of what you're thinking, maybe. But let me explain, if you don't know, what it means to be thronged, okay? To be thronged means to be pressed to the point of suffocation, okay? So there's that many people. He's being so squeezed and moved along, okay, to the point of suffocation. That's how many people, number one, pay attention, or how many people are touching him, okay? And that's why I gave the disciples a little bit of character when he's like, Master, you see the multitudes of people throng and press you, and you say, "Who touched me?" Like, it's kind of like a sarcastic question. They're like, what? Why are you asking that? It's a silly question, right? And that's why. So that kind of goes to, right, to tell us what it means. He's obviously being very pressed in on. There's a lot of people, okay? So in order for her to reach him, she would have been crawling through a sea of legs. So she touched the hem of his garment. And they didn't specifically touch on it here, but she actually touches the corner of his garment. And that will later on speak to other things about Jesus being the cornerstone and stuff. But we know that she touched the end hem of his garment. Okay, so she's not standing, she's not jumping up and down, she's not, crowd surfing, shoulders, right? She is crawling between the feet and legs of enough people. That's the desperation that she felt, okay, to do that, right? She wasn't just there and present and believing and watching, right? Look, think about what she would have had to have done to get to him, because she knew it. She knew it in her soul. If she could just touch him, she would be healed. And she's tried everything, right? For 12 years, she's tried everything. And all she had to do was touch him. And so she was ceremonially unclean. And so it's unique here that the author tells us about the physical touching, right? We know from previous stories, Jesus does not have to be present or physically touch you to be healed, right? But we know that there are certain times when we're told that he does touch them, and for different reasons, right? But think about it from this perspective. She was ceremonially unclean, meaning they being Jews and stuff around her, they could not sit on the same furniture she sat on. If she sat on a stool, they could not sit on that stool without her having to have done some kind of cleaning ritual, or them having to do some kind of sacrificial ritual to become clean again. Okay, cleaning, sacrificial, all kinds of stuff that they would have had to have done. She can't touch them. She can't touch something that they touched. Stand, eat, and be around on the ground that they're on. A lot of them would have been, I don't know if the word superstitious is the correct word to use, but they would have been wary of even her presence around them, because they would feel like she is being divinely punished, right? For a woman to be barren, especially, was considered a divine punishment. We know that from a lot of historical, even back farther in biblical time there. So she's barren and has this flow of blood for 12 years. And so they believe that she is being punished by God. So she is rejected. She's unclean. Nobody's around her, right? She spent all her money. She's got a flow of blood for 12 years. I mean, I couldn't imagine, right? And so all of these things have happened to her. And this is kind of pull together her desperation at this point. Amongst all the people that are thronging him and pressing him and shoving him, she doesn't even care, right? She's ceremonially unclean and she doesn't even care. She's getting there. She's going to get to Jesus, right? Her faith is driving her to him, okay? And so that's something to focus on there, is that it's her faith that is expressed. And Jesus himself even says it, right? It wasn't the physical touching, right? That was her version of, I need to reach you, right? And then when Jesus touches someone, usually it's out of compassion, right? Or allows the touch, it's from compassion, right? And so the only way for her to have been healed is if he allowed it. And so this very ceremonially unclean, supposedly, God punished person just touched him, right? And so, and he allowed it, right? And so anyway, that's the works of her faith, right? But it's not what saved her. Her faith is what saved her, okay? So the work was the evidence of her faith. And where have we heard that time and time again, right? Baptism. Baptism isn't what saves you. It is the evidence of your faith, right? You do it in obedience. You do it many reasons. We're not going to get into that on a tangent, right? So the fruits of the Spirit, right? All of these things that we do, the good works that we do for the Lord, right? They are works, right? But we do them because of our faith. They are not what saves us. Her faith saved her. And this also goes right along with what we were talking about before with the Jews, that before they didn't have to believe in him first. He just healed them. Now you have to be a believer before he heals. And these are some of the first two stories that we get right after that happens, right? We know it's consecutively happening, the chronology here. The next day, the next evening, the same night, they crossed the boat, they got there, right? You have one, a master of a synagogue, right, or a ruler of a synagogue, right? So this would have been a very faithful man. He fell down at Jesus' feet and begged him, right? And so this would be somebody who believed in him, right? And so then you have this woman who clearly she said, she put her faith in him, right? She said, it says that she gave him her whole story, right? And trembling, and she just believed if she could just touch him. So she declared her faith first. So that touches on that part there. And so, the last thing to touch on here is that Jesus, you're going to see, especially now throughout the beginning of the new church, happen to, while he's teaching, he's going to pick out specific disciples, right? He's teaching them. And so he's teaching his disciples to carry out, right, to start the new church. And so he picks certain disciples, certain men to go with him on certain journey, right? Certain destinations, certain times, whatever you want to call that, right? He picks out certain people. So kind of pay attention to that again. Before, when I told you things that are repetitive or things that are very informative, a time, a location. And so something here, we may not know why, but both the young child was 12 and the woman had a flow of blood for 12 years, right? So both afflictions of 12 years. So that's something to note on. Whether we have an answer for that or not, we don't know, right? But that's something to note on. And both women, well, she's a girl, but both women. And so, and the other thing to touch on, so, and then you have the 3 disciples that he chose. So down here, Peter, James, and John. So John being his brother, he specifically picked those 3. So if you highlight or underline those, your brain, you're going to kind of remember as you're reading through the rest of the Gospels here, when Jesus pulls out those specific 3, what is happening? What is he trying to teach them specifically, or whoever else he's chosen? What is he trying to teach them? That's something that we can start to put together as we study. And so that is it. So when along that line there, it's that it's not public, right? He did not do this big public healing anymore. He took it into private. He took everybody outside the house, just mom and dad and the 3 disciples that he allowed in there, right? And then again, tell no one. That wraps up for all the way up to this past Sunday. So if you missed class last week or even the week before, you are completely caught up now. So good for you. And that means you won't see me again until next week.